Morning, everybody. How are you doing?
Morning, Brendan. How's it going?
Doing well, thank you.
You thawing out down there?
Yeah, it's been. We went from -11 to 72 degrees in the same week.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, well, I think we're all on. I believe Anna and Stacia, are you on?
I'm here.
Hi.
We're here. Hi.
So I think, Brendan, I think everybody. Let's mute if we're not talking. There we go. Brendan, I think everybody's here and ready to go. I'm heading into a different training. And just to let you know, this conference room will then at 10 o'clock start the hospice training. So you may have to keep John Macias in line here a little bit.
Come on, Brendan.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
I'll be back. Okay.
Well, we're ready when
we'll
you
get
are,
it all
Brendan.
going and. Okay. All right. So I put in a caregiver test patient just to kind of show you where you're going to start from.
Okay.
And now I just went in and threw them in as a self-pay for now. Processes are going to end up being the same. So the main thing is once we get into the encounter, you're going to go ahead and just make sure everything's correct, make sure everything's filled out. If there's any missing information, you're going to see that on the profile tab. If you click on those the red font there for those links, it'll take you directly to where you need to add that information. Let me add that real quick. Now, on the phone numbers, it's going to be the same for all the agency types. Make sure, even if there's only one phone number, go ahead and hit the preferred next to that number so that it shows up everywhere, like up here at under the patient's name and disaster reports and things like that. So even if it's only one number, but you can add as many numbers as you need to for these patients. Most of this should come over on the conversion logic for your patients. Any additional information you guys need to add, such as patient contacts, you can definitely go ahead and get that added at any time. The notes is this is just internal communication about the patient. You guys can add notes if needed, but you probably won't need to in the beginning. Even though your patients do not require physician orders, we do need to put a physician in there for that primary physician spot. Even if you guys create a fake physician that just says caregiver physician, just a placeholder so that we don't have any errors with billing or anything else down the road. Documents tab is where you can upload all the information you guys want to. Yeah.
Just a quick question about the physician piece. We do that now in the system we're in now. We create a fictitious physician, but we want to start with CareFish. We want to start putting in, because we take that information, the actual primary. So we want to do what you said, put the actual primary instead of a fake person, so to speak. But will that cause anything else in CareFish? If we put a doctor in there, will it then say you need an order or anything like that?
No, it's not going to cause any problems. So yeah, that'd be great to use the actual physicians.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what it is going to require, I'm sorry, this is JP. Sorry. Yeah. The only thing you do need to do, and again, this is one of the things Molly and I are working on right now. First of all, you will need to add the physician's NPI and their license number because it will give you a hard stop at billing.
Okay. No, that's fine because we're going to have all that data in the system. We'll have a physician database for our county in there. So that won't be a problem.
Right. Yeah, because we did find where you have the license numbers in, because that's what Molly and I were working on. The physician licenses are actually in your old database, so we're trying to extract those now. But for anybody that you're adding, just always make sure that you have their NPI and their license number. And if it's right now, the way we're pulling them through, we're even pulling the ones with expired numbers. So also, again, at billing, if it's an expired one, it's still, even if you have the license number, you're going to have to go in and get just get a new validation date on the license because we're going to pull those expiration dates.
So JP, just to clarify, when we're billing, we're primarily self-pay. It's the system that's requiring that data because, again, we don't really delve into insurances.
Okay, well, you know what, and I'm sorry about that. I did forget. You guys if it's self-pay, you're going to be okay because it's just going to generate a generic invoice. I'm thinking because I have a lot of private duty agencies or caregiver agencies that also bill, waiver programs or insurances. If you're billing an insurance, it's going to give you a hard stop. To generate a generic invoice to the patient, you won't need that, no.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah, no, so back to the documents tab, just to let you know if there's any documents from your old system that you want to upload into here for reference, you can definitely go ahead and start adding any documents. Other things that usually get uploaded here are going to be like your referral information, any kind of doctor's notes, or anything that you guys may get for that patient over a fax machine or whatever. You're going to have to scan it into your computer and upload that document here. But you guys can do that at any time with the patients that are in there already. The clinical tab, a lot of this won't be needed for your type of patients, but you can still use this information to identify different teams if that caregiver is on a certain team or a certain case manager or clinical manager that manages that patient. You could identify them, or you can even add an entire clinical team, which would be everybody that's involved in that patient's care, if you guys want to use that. Same thing with specialty skills. This is what identifies them as a certain type of patient. Your patients probably don't fit any of these categories, but that's, again, if you wanted to identify anything for them, you could. Same with vendors. Now, the disaster plan, if you guys are required for that, to have
Brendan,
one on there.
Brendan, I'm sorry, but under vendors, you said you did a drop down right now, and you said, can we add to that that drop-down window? Can we add categories to that, or is that set?
Oh, as far as the specialty skills, this is customizable in the lookup tables. Yeah, and same thing with vendors, vaccines, programs. All of these are good. You guys would have to actually set it up in the settings to have something in that drop-down box to use. Okay. So definitely.
Thank you.
Disaster plans, if you guys need to add, no problem. If you need to add those, it's just click Add Disaster Plan, pick which priority level they are, and if they have specific plan details, you can enter that information. There is suggested text that could be added to the settings. I threw one in here, I guess, for the home health side, just to show you guys how to do it. But if you want specific type of verbiage in your disaster plan details, and it also works for your orders. I know you guys don't require orders and goals, but it also works for those types of things as well. But you can add templates into the settings, lookup tables, and then you can pick those from the list here just by checking that box and hitting save. It just pulls that verbiage in there, and then you can still edit it to be patient-specific. So a lot of agencies in their templates will have low dashes where something needs to be there, like an address or a person's name or something like that. And then they can just get rid of that low dash and enter that information. So there is that option here as well. And then that way it pulls to the disaster plan report if you guys need to run that. You guys don't do vital signs, do you, on your patients?
We do at times. They're trained on how to do that, but it's customizable by client. They get to choose that option if they want it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I ask is we may have to set it up to where vital sign section is in the note. If you wanted to use the parameters, now these do. If you were to add parameters, these are also customizable in your settings.
Okay.
These base numbers. Now it's going to affect home health and hospice and everybody, so just be aware of that.
Gotcha.
But the way this would work for your type of client is if we did have a vital sign section inside those service notes and they entered a vital sign that's outside of a range that you guys specify, then they're going to end up having a little red icon with a white exclamation point in it that tells them, basically just gives them a heads up it's out of the range. If they hover over that icon, it'll tell them what the range should be. and therefore it being outside the range, they should notify the nurse or notify the office, something like that. It won't stop them from completing their note. It just gives them that warning or that little heads up that that's outside the range. So if you guys choose to use these on those specific patients, just click Add Default Vital on the Clinical tab, adjust these ranges the way you want it. And then if it doesn't apply to this patient, like maybe blood sugars, weights, or O2 sets, once you add them, you can actually delete them. So you can come in here and just trash can those ones that do not apply to that patient.
Perfect.
And then you'll just have
Can the caregivers will be able to delete them, or does the office have to delete them?
They depends on their permission, on their role, but I believe, as long as they have the option to edit the patient, they should have the option to delete these if needed, if you need them to. Now, again, this is just a reference table that basically your service notes are going to look at. If you had orders, these do flow to the orders too, but you guys aren't going to need that. So,
And Brendan,
yeah,
so you mentioned that if we anything we put in here will impact home health and hospice. Would it do the reverse as well if hospice was in there and putting things in there in home health? I'm assuming it would do the same for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as most of the things in the settings, not everything, but most of the stuff they change in the settings will affect every one of the agencies.
Gotcha.
So anything that's in any of these lookup tables. Now, most of them don't apply to both agency types. Some things do, some things don't. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking at. But yeah, things that are changed in here will affect all of the agencies.
And that's great. That keeps us all on the same page. So that's fine.
Yeah. It's usually not. Now, of course, some things are different, of course, between hospice and home health and stuff like that. But everything that's going to affect your agency will most likely affect theirs, like service notes. But, of course, they won't use your type of service notes, so you don't have to be concerned about that. But anything in the lookup tables, just be aware of that. No problem. The DME, I don't suggest using this here. It's more of a hospice thing. This creates workflow since hospices have to provide DMEs during their admission to the hospice. And this will let them know that they've delivered it but haven't returned it yet. So you could add it here, but be aware this will cause workflow if we don't have a return date in here in the work basket up above. Advanced directives will be added here. Vaccines, again, if you guys added any to the lookup tables and programs, you could track vaccines for these patients and different programs that agencies use this for a couple of different things, different programs your agency may provide, and you want to just track that information, or community programs like Meals on Wheels or adult daycares and things like that. Sometimes they'll track that information here as well. Again, it has to be added to the settings. The disciplines, just FYI, anytime we order a discipline or schedule a discipline for a patient, you're going to get the service category for those disciplines here. So on your patients, you're probably just going to see caregiver, but on home health, if they have PTO, TST, RNs, or skilled nursing, they'll show all of that once you assign a visit or schedule a visit. Do you guys track meds?
We have
I
have a question really fast about the disciplines. Now, what if it's a shared client? So it's our client, and then let's say they're on the home health side too. Will it will it have that under the disciplines?
Well, first of all, if you're going to have a dual client like that, because the system is so integrated with like rules and regs and compliance and things like that, it makes it real difficult to have two different payers. It's doable, but it makes it real difficult when you're doing scheduling, when you're doing verifying services, things like that, because they have to make sure they assign it to the right payer and the right service code for each category. So if you do have those dual clients, it is better to run two charts. It's just cleaner. And the reason why I say that is go ahead.
No, I'm saying we just said that's a great idea because we have a lot of shared clients here, but if that's going to make it clean, that's what we want. So if having two separate accounts, so to speak,
Like we do now.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
similar to what we do now. We will have 2 episodes for the same client, a home health episode or a hospice episode, and then a caregiver episode. But however, if the nothing will
Correlate.
nothing will there won't be any crossover if it's in a different, as you said, chart, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You're right. It'll all be completely separate. Separate medical record numbers, separate everything that's in those encounters are going to be completely separated. So there may be situations where you have some double documentation kind of thing, like if you have to have meds here, and then of course they have to definitely add them to the home health side, then you would have to duplicate a little bit of work, but it's worth it to keep it clean because your scheduling is going to be clean, your verifications will be clean, your billing will be clean. Everything's there's just very minimal, if any, issues if you run 2 separate charts.
Okay.
So Brendan,
if we combine them, go ahead.
Yes. So I was going to say, if we agree with you, I think it's cleaner and we're fine with that. My question is going to be, if we do have shared clients and they are on 2 different charts, so to speak, within CareEfficient, can we still, will we be able to view those other disciplines? So if they're on home health, we'll be able to see that when we go into, if we do a lookup, we'll see that person there maybe twice or 3 times, depending if, what services they have with Livingston.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. As long as you guys have access to the other agencies. So this one I put in, right now it's just the training agency.
Yeah.
But as long as those clinicians have access to the other agencies as well, then yes, you would be able to see all that information. Now on your patient encounter screen, you'd be able to filter down to just your specific agency. But and then you can even lock down these filters. So if you're only worried about your caregiver agency normally, you can filter this to just the caregivers. There's a little lock over here to the right. You can lock this down, so every time you come to the screen, it's just going to show you the agencies that you're mainly concerned with. But you can always go back and show all agencies or the other agency type that you're looking for, and you'll be able to see that other patient name. So if you were to search for it, you would see both those charts. You'd see the caregiver test here and then the caregiver test here, but it would be under a different agency.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you asked a question about meds. We don't really track meds. So. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of skip that then because that's going to save us some time. Adding meds is a
Brendan, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, can now.
Oh, because I'm sorry, because I guess my headset went out. I've been talking and nobody could hear me. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
I wanted to go back. I'm sorry. They're not going to be able to see the other agencies unless you check with Molly, because Molly said that's why she wanted to make sure you're only going to be assigned to one agency and you're going to be assigned to the caregiver agency. So unless you have permission to see patients in other agencies, you're not going to see those other patient charts.
Gotcha. So we'll get that.
That's a permission setting and I'm pretty sure that's what, because Molly reached out to me when she was setting up the associates, that was when she's assigning agencies. I don't think you're going to see the other agencies unless you request permission to do that, and that would be her decision.
And we'll do that. And Molly's, she's gotten a real big head since she's leading this. So we'll smack her around a little bit and get that straightened out. No worries. Thank you, though, for that. We'll check with her.
That is going to be an issue. Now, this part is going to be different depending on if you guys enter your patient as a new referral or if it's a transition patient. it's a little bit different on what you guys are going to need to do. Now, remember, John, when I sent you the care needs that I thought was going to work best for your patient types, how we're going to just put those specific patient interventions or tasks inside those service notes so they're only documenting and doing what is in the service notes. So in order to do that, we do need to change this orders tab so that you can do a care needs for without orders. So unfortunately, if you put in a transition patient and on all of your transition pages, it's probably going to look like this when you get here. So what you actually have to do, and it's kind of weird, but you'll have to hit change certification period as needed, and you'll have to confirm it, hit change, and then it's going to add it. But then you're going to say, change it right back. You're going to say change, orders required to know. And then you're going to see this link here to change certification is needed only for care needs. And so what this does when you do this, it's going to basically create a placeholder once we activate the patient. It's going to create a care needs placeholder that you guys are going to attach your care needs to. So that part, hold on one second.
So Brendan, when we're talking about care needs, is that kind of the equivalent of a care plan? We do a care plan at every visit for every client, and we take down what their needs are going to be. Is this kind of a similar type of thing within Care Efficient?
Yeah, yes. So basically, you know, you sent me that list of possible tasks that they may or may not do, you know, just based off their scope of practice or whatever. So what the care needs does is it's a care plan. I think we labeled it caregiver care plan or something like that, or caregiver plan of care. I'd have to come in here and just double check. Let me I'm multitasking here, trying to look in the other screen to see. But essentially, no, it's not it. What did we do? I know I set it up because I sent you what I set up. Well, I'm going to have to come back to that. I'll try to do it as I'm doing this here. I've got to find a.
Sure. And can you, Brendan, when you do find it, can you resend it to me? Because I don't recall ever getting that. And you probably did, but I maybe just didn't see it. But can you send it to me again? There it is.
Absolutely. This is what I had sent you. This is what I set up inside of as care needs task actions.
Okay.
I got to find which care need I attached it to because I thought I created a caregiver plan of care, but I'm not seeing it in there, so I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
But essentially, you know, and you had the numbers in front of it, so I created it and matched it exactly to what you guys. I know this is what you use for the telephony, those codes. So I did put them back in there in front of it, so it'd be easily, you know, you guys can refer to those codes if you needed it for the telephony. So all of these, and it's just going to depend on what you do for your client or what you are going to do for your client. So we're going to create a plan of care. We're going to do shampoo their hair, then comb their hair. So they're not going to see, you know, if you didn't add the shampoo in bed, they're not going to see it inside their service note. They're only going to see the ones you want them to see.
Perfect.
Like the shampoo, the comb hair, etc. So that way they don't document on something they shouldn't have done in the first place, or things like that. But again, I also set up a service note to where all of these would be available if you wanted to go that route. But it sounded like from the last communications about this that you were good with this.
I am.
Adding it as a care needs. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So the other thing you need to do, make sure the patient has the payer. Now the start date for the payer, I'm going to click on the little profile link. I went ahead and added this already. Just make sure that you can backdate it to their start of care date or something if their original start of care date. Just make sure the start date is prior to the first billable visit that you guys are going to verify. Otherwise,
Okay.
you verify the service. So just backdate it a little bit. It doesn't really matter what that date is as long as it's prior to that first visit. So make sure you get the payer in there. Just to add the payer, click on Add Payer. Right now, I've got self-pay in there for this type of patient, and then we threw charity in there if you need it for charity. That way we can create the, basically you'll be able to track what you guys do for charity as well. I think that's a little bit more for the grief and bereavement, but if you guys have any charity as well, you guys can add that payer type to them. And then once you do that, just enter that information it's going to ask for, which is basically everything here on the profile tab. It's going to ask for the start date, the bill to address, which if it's a self-pay, it's going to pull up the patient's address, which it'll put that on that invoice when you run invoicing. So back to the orders tab. Actually, what we need to do now on these transitions. Did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. With the payer, with the billing address, if it's self-pay, normally it does go to the client's home address. However, some of them are sent to children or DPOA. So will we be able to put in a different billing address than the client address?
JP, how would they do that? Do they just hit add address and add a different address here?
Well, but that's on the payer. So you're saying that you have a bill to address that's separate for each payer, or for each patient, not each payer necessarily.
So
Remember, we're self-pay. We don't have insurances.
yeah, so it's not everyone, but most of our clients, the bill to address is them. However, some, they don't get the bill. It's their adult child that gets the bill. So we need to be able to put their address on the billing address.
See, I have a bill to address, but the bill to address is at the payer level. We'll have to figure out a way around that. I don't have something specifically that you can change the address. What I'm hearing you say is you need an alternative bill to address at the patient level, not at the because we do have an alternative bill to address, but it's at the payer level. But you don't want this. You actually, for each patient, you need to be able to change it at the patient level. So we'd have to look at putting a change in to do that for those. At the meantime, you'd have to print them out and manually change those addresses or address them separately until we get that change in. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they hit add address there?
It changes it for the whole payer.
Well, in the
because you're at the payer level
address.
Right.
Now we're in the patient payer level.
Well, maybe hold on. Do that again. Let me take a look here because you're in self-pay. Okay, so click add address.
I did. It will let you add an additional address here because I just added this one here. Now I wanted to check to see.
But make sure that you didn't. Yeah, go back to the organization payer and see what it has.
So, well, I won't change that on the org payer for them. For on self-pay, it'll only pull it from the contact tab. But when I added that address, the second address in, it threw it as an additional address for the patient contact or the patient.
For the patient contact, but not the bill to. That's what I'm saying. We need one that actually says bill to. We want to bill to an alternative address at the patient level.
Well, it lets you here because once you go to edit that payer and you change that bill to address, you can pick that alternate address for that payer for that patient. So it'll end up creating that the second address. But the only thing is that it does put that second address under the contacts tab as a second address.
As a second address, yes.
Yeah.
Now,
so you could do
me a
that,
favor, hit edit on there. Do me a favor, hit edit on that second address. Is there an option to, no, see, we actually should add an address type is what we need to do is under the drop down, we should have one for billing only. That's what we need to do. We need to identify it as a billing address. Yeah, and that's easy enough. That's something Todd would be able to change. I mean, we can get that added to the, but that's why. So even though I don't mind that it shows up under the contact tab, as long as it says for billing only. Okay. And then that, so you can take care of it on the invoice. I mean, I didn't, because actually AJ's my billing manager, so I don't keep up with all the changes she makes. Obviously, she's already put this in here at the self-pay level, but we do need to identify it as a billing address, though.
Gotcha. I'll talk to AJ about that. So okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's going to be doable, but we're gonna add an address type for billing only here. Okay.
That'll
so
work
that
for us. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I made a note for that, so we'll get that taken care of. I think it'll be I can probably actually add that today, but we'll
yeah,
see.
that's a pretty easy change. We just can't get it's a table that we can't get to. That's all.
Okay. All right. So, you know, like I said, just go through the tabs, add the information that you guys need. Service notes tabs, there's nothing to do there until you guys start adding service notes, and you'll be able to view them and print them and search them and do all kinds of other fun things. But so the next step on these transition patients is go ahead and get them activated. So you're going to come up here by the patient name. If this is it won't be grayed out, but if it's not underlined and it won't let you click on it, that's because there's going to be some missing information that we need first. So make sure you clear up everything that says it's missing under the profile tab. The physician is one of them, patient address, things like that. So make sure that at least all that information is in here. You'll see that this is underlined, then you can click on Activate Patient. On your transition patients, so this is just talking about the transition ones, and we'll go over putting a new patient in a start of care when we go through your additional training for the clinical training. But for your transition ones, you're going to put the original start of care date in, even if it was 10 years ago, and just add that in there. That way you guys can track, you know, what their original start of care date was. Enter that information. The address has to be in there before you can activate them. That's why it's one of the things that's going to kind of gray out that activate patient. So make sure you have their address in there. Now with your patient type, you probably don't need to worry about any of the rest of this, just that start of care. This admission source, admission type is more for the home health side. Case managers, if you did want to identify who the case manager is, you can go ahead and do that here as well as the clinical manager. And only because this is a test patient, even though it's in a training agency, typically on the test patients, I'm always going to exclude them from patient surveys so they never show up on the surveys. So you have that option if you don't need them on your surveys. And then hit Save. Okay. Now it's going to give you some missing information. Admission source, I guess we are going to have to put in there at least the admission source. Let's go ahead and add that, and then that clears up any of those errors. Okay, so now you can go back to the Orders tab, and now this is what you guys are going to see. Care needs, it actually says plan, but it's just a placeholder. That's all it's going to be. So what you do to add the actual care needs is hover over the action. Man, I'm going to have to... Hold on one second. Sorry, apologize. Well, I'm having issues here. JP, I don't know if you got a second to see. I'm looking at the agency rules for this training agency.
You know, they may not all be set up because we just added these training agencies at the end of the week last week, and I don't know that Alan had time because they don't auto add it. We added these after, so they didn't go through the automated process, so they may not have all the rules set up. What do you need?
Well, it's not giving me the option to add the care needs, and I'm looking. It looks like all the rules are on. Use care needs, offline form. I don't think we want to do that quite yet. I apologize. I know I'm
What rule are you looking for, Brendan?
I don't know. All of them that even apply to care needs are on here, so. But it did not give me the option to add the care needs or to attach the care needs. Because when you hover over this action item menu, you're supposed to have the option to attach the care needs. It's not giving it to me. Oh, here it is. They moved it. They moved it on me. So now they moved the link over here, and it's different because home health is still under this other pop-up menu. So over here, you see where it says Add Care Need? You'll click on that, and then you'll do your effective date, which is going to be basically, the effective date is going to be the date it's going to start showing up in the notes. So if you just do it equal to or before the date of the first service, then you're going to be okay. So if I put, for instance, just 2/1, hit save. Well, now it's not letting me save. I'm going to have to talk to Todd about that. It's not actually letting me add the care needs.
All right.
So there may be just a rule that I'm missing.
Let me mute you. I'll mute you, and I'll call him on my cell phone.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. So we'll come back to that. But this is really actually about the last step I was going to show you as far as getting those care needs in there. So real fast, while he's doing that, I'm going to double check where I attach these interventions and goals. Livingston, that's what I named it, Livingston Caregivers Plan of Care. So if we go to, I'm just going to show you real quick while we're waiting on figuring out how to add this. So if we go to Livingston Caregivers Plan of Care, that's what I labeled your plan of care. We're going to see all of those task actions for that when we go to add that, and I just need to wait on him for a second to see if we can add that. And again, all of the tasks that you guys had available, are right here. These are the ones that are going to end up being available. So really, all we're waiting on is that. Do you guys, while we're waiting, do you have any questions other than, of course, what I have not covered on adding the care needs?
So I do just, the care needs, obviously it's customizable because we gave you our list and you were able to make it effective. But as we move along and, our industry changes, quickly. And so there's things that we can start doing more and more of. If we need to add things, we can just let you all know.
You can let me know, or you guys even have, well, anybody with administrator settings or somebody that has access to the lookup tables and clinical support tables.
Okay.
As long as you have permissions on your roles, you guys can add it. In the beginning, you guys go ahead and send me any changes that you guys are noticing,
Okay.
and I'll go ahead and get them added. Just because it'll probably be a lot faster for me. But I do want you guys to know how to add those if needed. I just don't know if you're going to have the permissions to do it quite yet. So, but basically, yeah, you'll just end up going to, you know, if it's a task that you're wanting to change or add an additional task, you'll go to the settings, look up tables, clinical support tables, then go to the interventions. What I always tend to do if I'm working on, you know, a specific care need, like the caregiver plan of care, is I go ahead and just filter it down there so I can see what I have available here now. If I needed to end date any of these, I would just click on the edit pencil and put an end date when you don't want it available anymore. So if it's something you want to get rid of, you'd be able to end date it, and it's not going to be an option anymore. If you want to add more, you have two options. You can add one at a time or add mass, which lets you add up to 10 at a time. They both work the same way. But if you click on one of them, you will need to relate it to that care need, which is your Livingston caregiver's plan of care. That's the main thing. So that care need has to be attached to the, or that intervention or task has to be attached to that care need.
Okay.
You can filter it down to just the service code that you need, or if you leave it open-ended, it's not a required field. It will end up adding, or it will be available to any discipline if they try to add that Livingston plan of care, but they're not going to, so it's not going to matter.
Okay.
Leave it open-ended. You can, everything I enter, I usually kind of backdate it a little bit, either the beginning of this year or the beginning of the last year, just so it's available, you know, as soon as you need it. But otherwise, it would not be available until that start date.
Gotcha.
Then you type in that description. You can type in, you know, whatever that telephony code is, and then, you know, the description of that task. The response required is going to default to yes. That means when they're in their service notes, they have to address it. They have to say they've either completed it, patient caregiver refused, or not applicable to this visit. So maybe they couldn't get to that task because the other task took too much time. But this will require them to say, to give you a response.
Great. And then Brendan, at some point we'll get, obviously we haven't gotten to the point where we're doing that. I think that's going to be more at the clinical level, if you will, with our team. We'll get some training with the app and the overlap on how things flow between the app and this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I'm going to, on our follow-up trainings, I'll show you, you guys how to add the service notes. And then we'll go over the app. And it's going to be, now the app, I use what's called an Android emulator on a Windows computer. So it sometimes doesn't look, or it looks the same, but it sometimes doesn't actually function correctly. You guys won't have that problem, I mean, out in the field. As long as they have an updated device, they are going to be documenting on like a smartphone or a tablet, correct, out in the field?
Smartphone, yes.
Their own phone.
Okay. Now there is a, you know, for Apple, hold on, let me get over here to something. I'm just going to pull up this specs sheet here. Okay, so for the app, this is where the instructions are for that. For Android, they do need to have the Android operating system of 7.1 or newer. It does have to have GPS. Any device they use has to have GPS,
Yes.
or this will not work. And that's, when I say that, I mean native GPS is the real GPS. Some devices, mostly tablets, have what they call like a Wi-Fi assisted GPS. So if you're on a Wi-Fi network, it'll get the location of that network, but that puts your visit or your GPS way away from where you really are. So you need to have native GPS, and most phones do. It's the tablets that don't. And then on Apple, it needs to be iOS 11.2 or above. So some of the older devices that can't get up to 11.2, you may have issues with. But this is the minimum requirements for the EVV app for the Android and Apple.
Gotcha.
And we do have an offline app for Windows, but that's not what you guys are needing. So,
can you send that to me, Brendan? Email that to me, the specs that they need to have, so I can start prepping and quizzing everybody about that.
I will send it to you right now.
Thank you.
Downloads. Okay. That's usually about the only issues we have is with devices just not being up to spec. So I just now sent that to you. So you should be good to go on that. Now, as long as, again, they just meet those minimum requirements, you're going to be good. And then what I'll do is when we do our follow-up trainings, I'll go over how to download that app. You guys will have to give it permissions to use your location services on the device and your storage, access to the storage. And we don't go through and look at your phone or anything like that. We just need access to the storage so that we can download the service notes to the devices, plus gather that information for the EVV and things like that, and store it on the devices. So sometimes caregivers and field staff worry about that. And same with the GPS. They'll worry that we're tracking them all the time. The only time we use the GPS is when they hit start mileage or stop mileage or start care and stop care, and I'll explain those in our later trainings. But it will only track their coordinates the second they hit that button, and then it'll timestamp it, and then we'll do the math as far as travel duration and make sure, that they're where they're supposed to be, kind of thing. That information will all be uploaded. So other than that, I will go in way better detail on that. The main thing I just need to worry about right now is getting that care needs added so I can show you. But we can actually do that in our next training as well if we need to. I know we only got about 14 minutes left.
Yeah. Brendan?
Yes.
Okay. Todd's looking at it. I guess when he moved that link, there's something that's not connected there, that it's not working. But
okay.
That's where it should be, yeah. So
okay.
He's looking at it. He can't get that to work. Also, I just had a question. I'm sorry. Is it John?
Yes, John.
Okay. So my understanding was you're not going to be using EVV right now in California. Is that true?
That's not correct. We are planning on using EVV once we get all our caregivers up and running. Yeah.
We don't, as far as using it or actually transmitting, because again, I was told you're not required until 2023 because
yes.
We're not even looking at your aggregator at this point.
No, you're totally correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you can use that app for the EVV, but we're not going to be transmitting it anywhere. You're just going to be tracking it internally.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So it looks like we just are going to have to pick up where we left off here. John, I'll reach out to you and Molly as far as scheduling. I know they want a agenda by Monday, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you know when you want to try to do some of this training? Now, we're probably only going to need maybe 1 or 2 sessions for your guys, depending on if you're going to bring in all the caregivers to for me to explain, their processes.
Right.
And if we need to split those up into multiple, do you know, or if we're going to do train the trainer kind of, I train you train them.
So my understanding from Molly is she wants us to bring in our field staff in small groups. So I think for us, we have about a little over 50 field staff caregivers. And so I'm thinking small groups, meaning 10 in tens. So there would probably be at least 5 sessions of training. But I would double check that with Molly. That's what she's been telling me that she wants to have happen. And she gave me a tentative date in March. I believe it was like the week of the 22nd or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll kind of put together something real small. I don't really have one for just the caregivers, but really it's going to be just showing them. I usually do show them the online part because sometimes they do need to navigate online if they need to make corrections to their notes and things like that. So I do kind of just go over a quick overview of the things that might apply to them or they might need to know. And then I'll go over the app and how they do what they're going to do on their day-to-days. So those sessions won't take more than about an hour apiece, and we can definitely do 5 of them to cover all those caregivers. Now, for you and the office staff, I do think we need at least one more, obviously one more to get this care needs addressed so you guys can see how that works, which will probably be another hour. So I'll send you that agenda. Now that one we can probably do as soon. Well, I'll just have to wait on development as soon as we get that fixed, and then as soon as that's available and working, what I'll do is reach out to you, send you that agenda. Go ahead and try to get this one scheduled as quickly as possible, and then we'll start scheduling those other ones in March, late March.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Get those guys trained. Yeah, it's real easy. What they do on their end is very simple. It's just getting them used to doing it and not making mistakes. But that usually clears up in the beginning, pretty quickly. So especially with all they need to do is document. So it's not hard. We don't have to teach them how to write orders or anything, more complicated. So,
right.
And
I think that'll work. I think. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And just to make sure that, with the caregivers, they're not going to be they don't come into the office and get on the computer to document. Everything is going to be done on their phone, on the app.
Yeah, their documentation, it can be 100% done on the app.
Okay.
And we can make sure that when they upload their note, it stays in a completed status. And if that's the case, then they're done. However, if they don't mark something that we set up as being required to answer, even if they complete their note offline, when they upload it, it will go into an incomplete status, and then they'll have to log online to make any corrections to their notes. But that's really the only time they may have to go online.
Okay.
But typically, as long as they answer everything offline, we're not going to have any issues. But if they don't answer something that should have been answered, it will allow them to complete their note and upload it. But as soon as it gets into CareEfficient online, it will move it from a completed status to an incomplete status, and then the only way to get back to a complete status is go in there and make those required sections answered, and then they'll be able to mark it as complete. So that's why I do kind of go over both. But I'll be more focused on the app with them out in the field.
Okay, and we'll be notified if one of their notes is incomplete. Will like John
There
and
will be as long as you guys are assigned this work basket task. There's a task that's called. There may not be any in here yet. Definitely not, I don't think so. But under the scheduling, here it is. There's going to be one that says assessment is incomplete. So as long as they've uploaded it, if it's in a complete status and there's no errors, then you won't get any workflow for it. However, if there was a required section that needed to be responded, it will be in an incomplete status, and then you guys will see those under the work basket, under the scheduling, that there's assessments incomplete.
And Brendan, what permission is that? Just so that I'm sure that they all have that permission.
For the staff that are going to be checking for the incomplete notes?
Correct.
Okay, you'll just go, and I don't know if you have access to this, but you'll go to the settings, go to work basket, and then you'll go to user rules.
Okay.
You'll pick your user, just a trainer.
Oh, so I can do that. I can do work basket individually, not by role.
Correct.
Oh,
it's
perfect.
In
Great.
fact, you have to. Yeah, you have to do it per user. So.
Excellent. Okay.
But there's one in here. Yeah, there's one called incomplete assessment.
Perfect.
Service note. Where is that? Yeah, it's going to be in here. Let me save this real quick. Yeah, assessment is incomplete. It's underneath the scheduling group.
Okay.
So you can give them access to that. If you give them, now there's 3 tiers to everything, and basically just real fast how that works. When it first shows up as being an incomplete service note online, that's the first tier. It's going to show up in the work basket as white letters or white background with black letters. So for the first 24 hours, it'll be that color. After that 24 hours, it'll escalate to the second tier, which will be yellow background with black letters. That just lets you know it's already over 24. It's between 24 and 48 hours old. And then after that, it'll turn to red with background with white letters, and that lets you know it's already after the 48-hour mark. So those need to be addressed first, the red ones, then the yellow ones, and the white ones kind of thing. But yeah, that's how you add that to your staff that need that, and any other work basket items they may need, and then you'll be good to go.
Great.
Great.
Of course, up here at the top, you can filter to just your agency. And again, you're only going to have access up here based off what you have access on your profile. But you'll be able to filter to the training agency versus the live agency if you needed to.
Perfect. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan.
Right,
and
well,
I'll wait for your email about the care plan. But I think Catherine has another
I have
question.
one more question. When we do the next training to go over the care needs, will you kind of go over the scheduling piece as
Absolutely.
well? Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to do both of those for you. Now, so I know you guys are dealing with the caregivers. Are you guys the ones that are also doing the bereavement and grief?
No,
Yeah,
that's
we're
Stacia.
here. No, I'm here. Stacey's here.
Okay. Well, we might want to add you guys back to that other meeting as well, so we can go over it, because it's going to be the same thing, and we still need to cover the same things we didn't cover. We need to go over the care needs, and we need to go over the scheduling. And then, so if you guys can all join again on that next one, that'd be great. And then we'll just cover those last couple tests. Huh?
You mean the 10 o'clock meeting?
No. We haven't even scheduled it yet. It's
okay.
The one that we're talking about with John that we're going to have to reschedule again as well. So we'll just what I'll do is title it the Grief and Caregiver follow-up meeting, and we'll get that scheduled as soon as that care needs thing is addressed, and then we'll just make sure we can all coordinate a good time. But we'll do that pretty soon. I mean, I want to get that back out of the way. I wish we could have covered it today, but we ran out of time anyway.
So I'm then assuming that there are some things in there for grief and bereavement?
Well, there are. You mean as far as like service notes?
Yeah.
There are some already in there for the hospice side. There's a bereaved assessment visit, follow-up visit, phone call visit.
Yeah, those don't really apply to us. We're kind of the psychotherapy component. So we're doing progress notes, treatment plan, discharge planning. Also, I was wondering if, as I was watching, you have drop-down menu that allows for care, what service, whether you're washing someone's hair in bed or combing it. Can we do a DSM-5 drop-down menu for diagnostic purposes? So that we would have, major depression, adjustment disorder, complicated bereavement. I mean, is that possible under our side?
Absolutely. I think that would still work as a care need as well. We would just have to, can you email me the stuff that you need in there?
Sure.
And service notes, everything that you guys have for that you guys need. And I'll get those created because we don't have, it doesn't sound like, we don't really have a psych or psychological type note in here. There are some sections and other notes, but I think we'll need to create a specific one for your guys.
Okay,
so
I'll do
if
that
you could
today.
send me all of that. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
This is JP. So I thought, and I'm sorry, just to make sure, you're the grief and bereavement group, not bereavement that's part of hospice, right?
Correct.
Yeah, my understanding was that your note was just a narrative and you didn't really have a lot of information because I don't think we even got a copy of the notes for the grief and bereavement.
Oh, okay. Well, I put them in some Microsoft thing, so I will send them to Brendan today. We have a progress note, we have a treatment plan, and we have a discharge note.
Yeah,
So you actually do
that was me, because it was probably a mistake on my end in understanding that we were just looking at home health and hospice service notes. So I apologize. We do have those.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay, Molly. I'll send them.
Now, when you say a treatment plan, though, I mean, now you're not doing a care plan, or do you need a care plan? Because I thought.
No, what we have is a form, and then the counselor goes in, depending upon the goals for the client, and develops goals, objectives, and interventions. So what I'll do is send you what we're using so you can see it.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
and then we can talk later about adapting that to however it needs to be adapted.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
And I apologize, but we need to hop onto the hospice transition training now.
Absolutely. You guys have a great day, okay?
You too,
talk
Brendan.
soon.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
All right.
No problem. Bye.